The sound of the ultrasound machine still echoed in Marissa Lane's ears when her world collapsed. She was 5 months pregnant with twins, exhausted from weeks of dizzy spells, and clinging to the only hope she had left. She thought today would be the first day Bradley finally softened, finally saw her, finally remembered the vows he once made. Instead, he walked into the exam room with a cologne so sharp it stung her eyes, a designer suit she'd never seen before, and a smile that didn't belong to a husband. It belonged to a man who'd already left her in his mind. He didn't sit down. He didn't even look at the screen where their babies moved. "Marissa," he said, sliding a crisp folder onto her lap, "I'm done pretending. Sign the divorce papers. I can't carry you anymore." She thought she misheard. Her heartbeat pounded in her throat. She was trembling so hard the paper fluttered like a dying bird. "You're leaving me? Now?" Her voice cracked. "Bradley, I'm pregnant. With your children." He shrugged, bored. "You're holding me back. I found someone who fits the life I want, someone who isn't this." He gestured at her hospital gown like it was an inconvenience. A nurse gasped softly. Marissa's vision blurred, her breath shortening. The room tilted, the fluorescent lights smearing into streaks. And that was when she saw him. A tall man in a charcoal coat standing just outside the doorway, watching with a quiet intensity. She didn't know his name, didn't know why his eyes filled with something that looked painfully close to recognition. All she knew was that the moment Bradley walked out, everything inside her collapsed. What she didn't know was this: the stranger at the door would change the entire trajectory of her life. And Bradley Pierce had just made the most catastrophic mistake he would ever make. Because fate was already moving against him. Before the day her husband shattered her world in that exam room, Marissa Lane used to believe she was ordinary, not invisible, not remarkable, just someone who tried her best to live quietly in a city that never stopped roaring. She taught art at a small private school in Brooklyn, guiding children's hands as they dipped brushes into colors she wished her own life had. Her paycheck barely covered rent, her shoes were always a season behind, and her dreams lived folded inside sketchbooks she rarely opened anymore. But she never complained. She had grown up learning that silence was safer than asking for too much. Marissa came from a fractured family, parents who drifted apart, relatives who drifted further. By the time she turned 18, she understood one lesson better than any textbook. If she didn't hold herself together, no one else would. Maybe that was why she clung to Bradley Pierce so tightly when he first walked into her life. He was confident, polished, everything she wasn't. He told her she was gentle, steady, a breath of calm. She mistook those words for love. In hindsight, they were labels, roles she was expected to fit as he climbed toward a life she was never meant to enter. When she found out she was pregnant with twins, she let herself hope again. Hope that the man who laughed a little too loudly at rooftop bars would soften. Hope that the man who obsessed over followers and brand deals would remember he once whispered promises into her hair. Hope that the babies growing inside her would become the anchor that steadied them both. But pregnancy didn't make Bradley kinder. It made him impatient. Every craving, every appointment, every moment she needed comfort was met with a sigh or a complaint about timing. The distance between them grew so fast Marissa could barely track the pieces falling away. Still, she kept going. She worked until her ankles swelled. She walked to appointments alone. She whispered lullabies into her empty apartment to reassure the two little lives who depended on her. Because that's who she was, a woman who pushed forward even when her heart cracked. Maybe that's why the stranger at the clinic doorway looked at her the way he did. Maybe he saw something she didn't. A woman who hadn't broken, not fully. A woman who still had fire beneath the ash. But that realization would come later. For now, Marissa Lane was just a pregnant woman abandoned at her weakest, unaware that destiny had already begun stitching a new life behind her back. Long before Bradley Pierce handed Marissa those divorce papers, his transformation had already begun quietly, subtly, like a stain spreading under expensive fabric. The man she married had once been charming in a modest way, the type who split a sandwich with her on a park bench and talked about building a future brick by brick. But New York had a way of reshaping people, especially those desperate to outrun their own insecurities. The moment Bradley discovered social currency, the kind measured in rooftop invitations, luxury brunches, and follower counts, he became addicted. He wasn't wealthy, not truly, but he learned how to mimic wealth with alarming precision. Designer shoes bought on credit, luxury watch rentals for Instagram photos, borrowed cars from colleagues who didn't know how often he bragged as if they were his. His life became a highlight reel curated for strangers. And then came Serena Vale, the influencer whose smile could stop traffic and whose ambition could crush anything in her way. She had millions of followers, brand deals, and a talent for sniffing out men who needed validation. Bradley became her latest project not because she loved him, but because he made excellent content. To Serena, he wasn't a partner, he was an accessory. With every photo they took together, Bradley drifted further from reality. He began resenting Marissa for not being part of this new world. "You don't understand what success looks like," he'd tell her after she questioned his late nights. "People expect a certain image." He loved that word more than he ever loved her. When Marissa grew more visibly pregnant, Bradley became colder. "This isn't the right time," he complained. "Do you know how hard it is to build a brand with a pregnant wife? It sends the wrong message." He spoke about his unborn children as if they were obstacles, not miracles. He told Serena he felt trapped, and Serena, always calculating, encouraged him to rewrite his narrative. So he did. He rewrote it without Marissa in it. The day he walked into the exam room with the divorce papers, Bradley wasn't thinking about the vows he made or the babies whose heartbeats echoed through the speakers. He was thinking about a sponsorship deal. Serena promised him one that required a fresh start. But as he strutted out of the clinic, satisfied with the cruelty he called clarity, he didn't notice the man standing in the hallway. Everett Caldwell watched him walk away, his jaw tense, his eyes sharp. Bradley believed he had traded up. He had no idea that he had just stepped into the beginning of his own downfall, and that the man who witnessed his arrogance would one day dismantle everything he pretended to be. 2 days after Bradley abandoned her at the clinic, Marissa Lane found herself standing outside the Midtown Auditorium, where Bradley's company was hosting a flashy product launch. She hadn't planned to go. She could barely stand without losing her breath, her belly tight with the weight of the twins. But a delivery mix-up left one of Bradley's documents at their old apartment, and in a moment of hopeful foolishness, she convinced herself that maybe, just maybe, he would speak to her like a human being if she returned it. Hope is a dangerous thing for someone already bleeding. Inside the marble lobby, she quickly realized she didn't belong. Crystal lights glowed overhead. Women in sequined dresses floated past. Men in tailored suits talked loudly about stock numbers and opportunities. Everyone sparkled except her. She wore a loose sweater that barely hid her pregnancy and sneakers because her feet had swollen painfully. She could feel the judgment before anyone even looked her way. Then she saw him. Bradley stood near the stage, one arm draped confidently around Serena Vale. Cameras flashed as they posed together like the picture-perfect power couple. Serena was breathtaking in a red satin gown, all curves and confidence. Bradley kissed her temple for the photographers, grinning wider than he ever had for Marissa. Marissa froze. Her breath vanished. She watched him accept a microphone, watched the crowd applaud, watched Serena beam proudly as if she were the rightful wife, not the woman carrying his children. When Bradley addressed the audience, his voice carried through the speakers, smooth and arrogant. "Tonight marks a new chapter," he announced. "In business and in life." Serena squeezed his hand. A reporter shouted, "Is this your new partner?" Serena giggled. Bradley didn't deny it. Marissa felt her knees shake. Her vision pulsed at the edges. She tried to back away, but her ankle buckled. The folder slipped from her grip, papers scattering across the polished floor. A few people laughed under their breath. No one helped her. Not one person even reached out. Except one. A firm hand caught her before she fell. A familiar voice, steady, grounding, spoke beside her ear. "Easy. I've got you." It was the stranger from the clinic, Everett Caldwell. His presence was calm, powerful, out of place in the chaos. When Bradley noticed Marissa leaning against Everett's arm, his smile faltered for the first time. Something uncomfortable flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Fear? Recognition? He didn't have time to react. Because Everett stepped in front of Marissa, shielding her from the cameras, his voice low and controlled. "You shouldn't be here alone." And for the first time, Marissa wondered if fate really was shifting. Because humiliation was only the beginning, her rise would be far louder. The night after the product launch, The city felt colder than usual. Marissa Lane sat on the edge of the narrow bed in her tiny apartment, the one she and Bradley once shared before he decided luxury mattered more than loyalty. The lights of Brooklyn flickered outside her window, but inside, everything was dim. She had spent the entire day replaying his words, his smile, his arm around Serena, the way the cameras loved them. Every memory hit harder than the last. Her twins kicked softly, reminding her she wasn't alone, even when she felt completely abandoned. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering, "I'm trying. I promise I'm trying." But the truth was cruel. She had never felt weaker. Her feet were swollen, her back ached, and her chest tightened with every breath. Stress was beginning to take a toll on her pregnancy, and she knew she needed stability, calm, something she didn't have anymore. She tried calling Bradley once more, telling herself it was only to discuss medical bills or the insurance paperwork he had promised to handle. But when Serena answered, instead laughing, amused, and unapologetically cruel, Marissa ended the call before another word could slice her apart. Hours later, exhaustion set in. She shuffled toward the kitchenette, but the room spun violently, her vision blurred. She steadied herself against the counter, inhaling shaky breaths. She didn't want to admit it, but she was scared, truly scared for the first time since the divorce papers shattered her life. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Is this Marissa Lane? This is Everett Caldwell. I'm checking in. Are you safe tonight?" She stared at the screen, stunned. Why would a billionaire, a stranger, care about her safety? Before she could respond, a sudden, sharp pain shot across her abdomen. Panic surged through her. She grabbed her coat, her purse, and willed her legs to move. The hallway stretched endlessly as she limped toward the door. She didn't call Bradley. She didn't call anyone. Instinct drove her out into the freezing night air, where passing headlights blurred into streaks. She tried waving for a cab, but her voice failed her. Her knees buckled. That was when a sleek black SUV skidded to a stop beside her. The passenger door swung open. "Marissa, get in, now." Everett. Somehow he had found her. Somehow he knew. She collapsed into the seat as the world dissolved into darkness. And in that darkness, fate tightened its grip around her life, refusing to let her fall any further. Marissa woke to the faint antiseptic scent of a private hospital room, the kind she'd only seen in movies, soft lighting, warm blankets, and silence that felt almost too gentle to be real. Her eyelids fluttered open, heavy from exhaustion. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she heard the rhythmic beeping of monitors, steady, reassuring. Her hands shot instinctively to her belly. The twins kicked faintly beneath her palm. They were safe. Relief poured through her, so strong it made her eyes sting. "You're awake." The voice was low, calm, unmistakably controlled. Everett Caldwell stood near the window, his charcoal suit jacket draped over a chair, sleeves rolled up as if he'd been there for hours. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes, sharp steel blue, watched her with an intensity she couldn't understand. What happened?" Marissa whispered. "You passed out from stress and dehydration," Everett replied. "Your blood pressure dropped significantly. If you had been alone much longer." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Marissa swallowed hard. "Why were you there?" Everett considered her for a moment, then answered simply, "Because something told me you needed someone watching out for you." She didn't know how to respond. No one had said words like that to her in years, not with sincerity, not without expecting something in return. A billionaire CEO could have been anywhere else. At a board meeting, on a private jet, at a $1,000 dinner. Instead, he was here with her. "You shouldn't worry about the cost of this hospital," Everett added, almost casually. "It's taken care of." Her breath hitched. I can't accept that. I don't even know you." "Maybe not yet," he said, "but you will." The room fell quiet again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. For the first time since the divorce, since the humiliation, since the unraveling of her life, Marissa didn't feel entirely alone. The weight in her chest loosened just a little. Then Everett stepped closer, his expression shifting into something more serious. "Marissa, you need to understand something," his voice lowered. "People like Bradley don't get to walk away from their responsibilities, not without consequences." She blinked, startled. "Why do you care what happens to him?" Everett held her gaze with a certainty that sent a shiver down her spine. Because men like him think they can throw people away without looking back. A pause. And I've seen enough of that in my lifetime. There was something in his tone, something personal, unresolved, almost painful, something he didn't elaborate on. But Marissa would. Later. For now, all she knew was this. Everett wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was becoming the force fate had sent to rewrite everything she thought she'd lost. For the next few days, Marissa remained under medical supervision. The twins were stable, but the doctors insisted on rest, calm, monitored stress levels. 3 things she hadn't had since Bradley decided she was disposable. Everett visited every day, never overstaying, never assuming. He brought warm meals instead of flowers, soft blankets instead of grand gestures. His presence was quiet, yet impossible to ignore. Still, one question gnawed at her. Why was he helping her? One evening, as the city lights flickered across the skyline, Marissa finally asked, "You don't even know me," she whispered. "So why does it feel like you're trying to protect me?" Everett didn't answer at first. His gaze drifted toward the window, where Manhattan shimmered like a restless giant. His jaw tightened just barely, but enough for Marissa to notice. "Because," he said slowly, "I've seen what happens when a good woman is abandoned at her weakest." There was something raw in his tone, something unguarded. Marissa waited. Everett exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose, as if debating whether to let her into a part of his life no one else touched. "My sister," he said at last. Her name was Claire. She was 7 months pregnant when her husband walked out on her, left her with nothing, no warning, no support, just disappeared. Marissa's throat tightened. What happened to her? His eyes darkened, not with sadness, but with a fury so controlled it made the room feel colder. "She didn't survive," Everett said. "Stress, medical complications. The doctors did everything they could, but she didn't make it. And the man, her husband, moved on like she never existed." Marissa's breath caught. This wasn't just sympathy. This was history repeating itself in front of Everett's eyes. He continued, "When I saw you at the clinic, when I saw him walk away from you, it felt like watching Claire collapse all over again." Silence blanketed the room. Marissa's vision blurred not from pity, but from something deeper. She realized Everett wasn't simply a stranger performing charity. He was a man carrying his own wounds. A man who refused to let another innocent woman drown the way his sister had. But there was something else in his eyes too, something that didn't belong to the past, something meant for her. Before she could speak, Everett straightened. His voice shifted calmer, firmer, like a promise. "You're not alone anymore, Marissa. Not while I'm still breathing." Her heart thudded. For the first time, she believed it. What she didn't know was that Everett's involvement would soon spiral far beyond simple protection into a future neither of them saw coming. Marissa Lane had always moved through the world as softly as a watercolor stroke, gentle, careful, easily overlooked. But recovery inside the quiet sanctuary of a private hospital, under Everett Caldwell's watchful protection, began to change something in her. Not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, steadily, like dawn creeping over a bruised horizon. After a week, she was discharged into a chauffeured SUV that took her not to her old apartment, but to a temporary residence provided by Everett, a warm, sunlit condo overlooking the East River. Not extravagant, not overwhelming, just safe. Safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. At first, she resisted the help. The new environment, the soft linens, the stocked fridge, the quiet. But then came the moment everything shifted. It was during her first prenatal appointment post-hospital. She expected Everett to simply drop her off. Instead, he stepped inside with her, patiently sitting beside her as the doctor examined the twins. When the heartbeats filled the room, strong, steady, full of life, Marissa looked up and found Everett watching her, not the screen, not with pity, with admiration. It startled her. After the appointment, he said, "You're stronger than you think, Marissa." She didn't believe it then. But later that night, as she stood before the mirror in the condo bathroom, she studied her reflection. Tired eyes, soft curves of pregnancy, hair pulled loosely over one shoulder. She didn't look weak. She looked surviving. The next morning, she opened her sketchbook for the first time in months. Her hands trembled as she touched the page, but not from fear. From anticipation, she let herself draw, swirling strokes, blooming colors, a burst of emotion she didn't realize she'd been holding. Days became a routine. Gentle walks by the river, healthy meals delivered by Everett's staff, messages from him checking in daily. And one afternoon, a package arrived from a boutique on Fifth Avenue. Inside, a flowing maternity dress, midnight blue, elegant and soft. The note read, "For the woman who has forgotten her own glow, Everett." Marissa clutched the fabric to her chest, tears rising not from sadness, but from unfamiliar warmth. She wasn't used to someone seeing her, not just as a mother-to-be, not as a burden, but as a woman. She wore the dress that evening, and when she looked in the mirror, she didn't see the abandoned wife anymore. She saw a woman who was beginning to rise. What she didn't see was the storm forming far away. Bradley's downfall was accelerating, and her transformation was about to collide with his destruction. For the first time in months, Marissa Lane felt a fragile sense of stability growing beneath her feet. She had a safe home, a calm routine, and a quiet thread of connection with Everett Caldwell that she didn't dare name yet. But life has a cruel talent for testing people at the moment they begin to hope again. It happened on a Thursday afternoon. Marissa had been sitting near the window, painting the skyline as the twins fluttered gently inside her, when a sudden, sharp pain tore through her lower abdomen. It wasn't like the usual discomfort of pregnancy. It was deep, intense, alarming. She froze, brush falling from her hand. Then the second pain hit. Stronger? She gasped, gripping the edge of the table as the room tilted. Panic surged. "Not now, please, not now," she whispered, pressing a trembling hand to her belly. The twins weren't due for months. This couldn't be happening. Her phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Instinct propelled her toward the hallway, but her legs buckled halfway. She leaned against the wall, breathing in sharp, ragged bursts. A cold sweat broke across her skin. She wasn't just afraid for herself. She was terrified for them. With shaking fingers, she managed to grab the phone and press Everett's contact. He answered on the first ring. "Marissa." His voice, steady, strong, felt like an anchor. Something's wrong," she gasped. "The baby's, Everett. I think something's wrong. I'm on my way. Don't move." Minutes later, though, it felt like hours, the penthouse door flew open. Everett crossed the room in 3 strides, lifting her into his arms without hesitation. His expression was controlled, but his eyes were blazing with fear he didn't bother hiding. "Stay with me," he whispered, holding her close as he rushed her to the elevator. "I'm not losing you. Not losing them." At the hospital, monitors beeped urgently. Doctors and nurses moved with quick, precise motions. Everett stood beside her bed, refusing to leave even when instructed. Her blood pressure is dropping, prep for emergency stabilization. Marissa's vision blurred. She felt Everett take her hand. "Marissa, look at me," he said. "You're not alone. I'm right here." She wanted to hold on, to stay conscious, but darkness tugged at her. Her last thought was a silent plea. "Please save my babies." And just before the world disappeared, Everett's terrified whisper cut through the haze. "Don't take them from me too." Marissa didn't remember much from the emergency procedure, just flashes of cold lights, urgent voices, and Everett's hand locked around hers, as if his willpower alone could anchor her to life. When she finally woke, hours later, the room was quiet. A soft glow spilled through the blinds, and the rhythmic monitor beeps told her she was still here. And so were the twins. "They're stable," a nurse whispered. "You made it through the danger." Relief hit her like a tidal wave. But when she turned her head, she froze. Everett sat beside her bed, still in the same clothes, eyes rimmed with exhaustion yet unwaveringly alert. He looked like a man who had spent the night fighting demons only he could see. When he realized she was awake, the tension in his shoulders released. "You scared me," he murmured, "more than I expected." Marissa felt a strange warmth bloom in her chest. No one had said words like that to her in years. No one had stayed, no one had fought for her. She whispered, "I didn't mean to." "I know," his voice softened, "but you need to understand something, Marissa. You can't go back to carrying everything alone." Those words settled into her like seeds finding fertile ground. After a few days in recovery, she was discharged again, this time stronger, more careful, more aware of how fragile and precious her life had become. Everett arranged for a prenatal specialist, a private nutritionist, and a therapist who specialized in trauma. At first, she resisted again, old habits pulling her back into the belief she didn't deserve help. But something had changed. Nearly losing her twins had forced her to confront a truth she'd ignored for too long. She wasn't weak. She was surviving despite circumstances designed to break her. One morning, she stood in front of the mirror, wearing a simple, cream-colored maternity dress Everett's staff had left for her. She expected to see the same frightened woman from before. Instead, she saw someone new, a woman who had walked through fire, a mother who would do anything to protect her children, a human being who deserved more than the scraps Bradley had thrown her way. She traced her reflection gently and whispered, "No more shrinking." Her phone buzzed with a message. "Everett again. Step by step, Marissa. And when you're ready, I want to show you something." She didn't know it yet, but that something would become the next turning point of her life. A door into a world she never imagined she could belong to. While Marissa slowly rebuilt her strength, Bradley Pierce's glossy world began to crack first at the edges, then violently, like shattering glass no one could glue back together. The world he had crafted from borrowed luxury and shallow validation was never built to last. But he was too intoxicated by the spotlight to notice the rot beneath his feet. It started with Serena Vale. Her followers had plateaued. Engagement was dropping. A bigger influencer had just taken the sponsorship Bradley had been counting on. And Serena, ever hungry for relevance, needed a new storyline. Their power couple narrative was losing steam. "What if we break up publicly?" she suggested one night, scrolling through her phone. Anger boosts traction. Bradley blinked. "Break up? Serena, we're doing fine." She laughed a cold, dismissive sound. "Bradley, you're not trending anymore." Those 6 words sliced deeper than any knife. Within a week, she left him. But not quietly. She posted a video titled "Leaving Toxicity Behind," carefully worded to imply Bradley had lied, manipulated, and used her. Brands cut ties instantly. His inbox, once overflowing with collaboration offers, went silent. He tried damage control, but the internet moved fast and moved on without mercy. Then came the real blow. His company discovered discrepancies in his expense reports. Thousands of dollars in unauthorized charges, designer suits, luxury weekends, rented sports cars, all billed under corporate accounts he never expected anyone to read closely. He had always assumed charm covered incompetence. It didn't. He was suspended pending investigation, and then fired. The same colleagues who once admired him now avoided eye contact as he packed his things into a cardboard box. No sympathy, no support, just disgust. Days later, he returned to his apartment only to find the locks changed. Serena had lived there too, and she had officially removed him from the lease. His belongings, what hadn't been sold or destroyed, were dumped in the hallway like trash. In desperation, he called Marissa. Not out of guilt, out of need. He needed money. A place to stay, someone soft enough to absorb his chaos again. When she didn't pick up, he tried again, and again. Eventually, he left a voicemail dripping with entitlement. "Marissa, you owe me a conversation. Don't forget those babies are mine too." But for the first time, his words held no power. Because Marissa wasn't that frightened woman anymore. And Bradley, for all his arrogance, had no idea how much she had transformed or how deeply entangled her life had become with Everett Caldwell. His downfall had only begun, and the next time he saw Marissa, she would be unrecognizable. By the time Marissa had regained her strength and adjusted to a calmer routine, Everett Caldwell began to subtly widen her world. He never pushed, only invited. A gentle suggestion here, a quiet introduction there. Soon, she found herself attending small private gatherings hosted by his closest associates. Charity board members, architects, economists, and philanthropists who orbited the Caldwell legacy. Marissa entered those rooms cautiously, her hand resting subconsciously on her growing belly, unsure if she belonged. But the moment people met her, really saw her, the atmosphere shifted. There was something grounding about her presence, something soft but undeniable. And Everett, he watched her with a quiet pride he didn't bother hiding. Word spread faster than either of them expected. At one luncheon overlooking Central Park, a well-known socialite leaned toward her friend and whispered, "Who is she? Everett never brings anyone." Another replied, "Maybe she's the one he's been protecting." By dessert, the rumors had already evolved. "She's stunning. She's mysterious. She must be important if Everett is personally escorting her. No one knew her name. No one knew her story. And that made her more intriguing. Marissa didn't realize how visible she had become until one afternoon when Everett guided her into an exclusive art exhibit on Fifth Avenue. Cameras weren't allowed, but eyes certainly were. Conversations dipped as she passed. A few people greeted Everett warmly, then looked at Marissa with curiosity that bordered on awe. She felt self-conscious and whispered, "I don't think I fit in here." Everett bent slightly toward her. "You fit anywhere you decide to stand." His certainty warmed her more deeply than she admitted. But the real shift, the moment everything changed, came when an elderly patron of the arts approached her. She studied Marissa thoughtfully before saying, "My dear, you carry yourself like someone who has survived something profound." The words struck her like a soft blow, unexpected yet deeply true. Later that evening, as Everett drove her home, she glanced at him and asked, "Are people talking about me?" He didn't look surprised. People always talk. What matters is that they're noticing your strength, not your shadows. But gossip in the Upper East Side travels with its own weather system. By the next week, whispers turned into speculation. Some said she was Everett's fiancée. Some said she was a philanthropist returning from overseas. Some swore she was a widow of old money. The truth? She was none of those things. Not yet. But the city was already weaving her into its fabric. And miles away, Bradley Pierce heard the rumors too. And when he learned the mysterious woman was his ex-wife, everything inside him ruptured. The day began quietly, the way life often does before everything changes. Marissa Lane sat in Everett Caldwell's office, a sleek corner space overlooking Manhattan, glass walls catching the morning light. She felt small inside it, yet strangely grounded. Her hands rested protectively over her belly. The twins shifted gently, reminding her they were listening too. Everett entered with a folder in hand. Not businesslike, not distant, something heavier. "Marissa," he said, pulling a chair beside her instead of sitting across the desk. "There's something we need to discuss, something important." Her heart tightened. "Is something wrong?" "No," Everett replied softly. "But something needs to be made right." He opened the folder. Inside were legal documents, official, notarized, lined with the Caldwell crest. She recognized some terms, others not. But one phrase pulsed off the page like a heartbeat. Pre-birth recognition of heirs. Marissa looked up sharply. "Everett, what is this?" He held her gaze with a sincerity that made her breath catch. "It means the twins will have full legal rights as heirs to my estate. Protection. Security. A future no one, not Bradley, not the world, can take from them." Her mouth fell open. "But they're not biologically yours." Everett shook his head. "Fatherhood is more than biology. It's presence, responsibility, choice." His voice deepened. "And I choose them. I choose you." Emotions surged: fear, gratitude, disbelief. Something warmer she didn't dare name. She whispered, "You don't have to do this." "I know." His tone softened. "But I want to." He explained everything. The legal steps, the protections, the inheritance rights. It wasn't charity. It wasn't obligation. It was intention. A future made solid. Tears stung Marissa's eyes. No one had ever fought for her like this. No one had ever looked at her children unborn, unseen, and declared them worthy of belonging. Slowly, handshaking, she signed her part of the document. Everett signed next. With that stroke of ink, the twins became Caldwell heirs, protected by one of the most powerful legacies in New York. "Welcome to the family," Everett whispered. Marissa's breath hitched. Family, a word she had tiptoed around for years, a word she thought belonged to other people. But the moment was interrupted by Everett's phone buzzing urgently. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. "It's about Bradley." Marissa felt her stomach drop. What happened? Everett's eyes darkened. "He just filed a petition, demanding custody rights." Her pulse stopped. "Custody? Now? After abandoning her?" Everett stood, fury simmering beneath his calm exterior. He doesn't know who he's up against. Marissa clutched her belly, fear and fire colliding inside her. Because Bradley was about to discover that the woman he discarded now stood backed by the full power of the Caldwell empire. The invitation arrived in a thick cream envelope embossed with silver lettering. the Caldwell Foundation Annual Art and Innovation Gala. Marissa held it in her hands, stunned. She had attended nothing this grand in her entire life. Everett noticed her hesitation and said gently, "You don't have to come, but I'd like you to." Something inside her shifted. For years, Manhattan's elite world had existed above her like a skyline she wasn't allowed to touch. Tonight, she would walk into it pregnant, steady, and unhidden. Hours before the gala, a team arrived at her condo stylist's. Everett hired only if she felt comfortable, though she suspected they were practically vibrating with excitement. They treated her gently, as if aware of the twins resting beneath her heart. Her dress was custom-made, a deep emerald satin that draped around her belly like it was designed for royalty. Soft waves framed her face. Diamond earrings, delicate, tasteful, glimmered with each breath. She barely recognized the woman in the mirror. Perhaps that was the point. When Everett arrived to escort her, he paused in the doorway, breath briefly stolen. He didn't speak right away, not out of politeness, but awe. "You look." His voice softened into something reverent. "Extraordinary." At the gala entrance, cameras flashed like lightning. Manhattan's elite stepped out of black cars dressed in couture and confidence. And then came Everett, one of the city's most powerful men, offering his arm to Marissa Lane, a woman the public had only whispered about. The reporters murmured, "Is that her? That's the woman he's been protecting? She's beautiful. She's pregnant? Whose children?" Speculation crackled through the air. Inside the grand ballroom, chandeliers shimmered like frozen stars, and musicians played soft classical notes. Marissa moved carefully, overwhelmed but steady. People approached Everett, noticing her more than him. Some congratulated her without knowing why. Others simply stared. A well-known philanthropist smiled warmly. "You carry yourself with grace, my dear." Grace. Marissa almost laughed if only they knew the storms she had walked through. Across the room, Everett leaned down slightly and whispered, "You're doing perfectly." For the first time, she believed him. But the night's real turning point came when she glimpsed a familiar figure lingering near the entrance, eyes wide, face pale, mouth falling open in disbelief. Bradley. He froze in place, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost wearing a crown. His once perfect facade crumbled as he took in her elegance, her glow, the unmistakable presence of Everett Caldwell at her side. He mouthed one word, "Marissa?" She didn't react. She didn't flinch. She simply turned her head away, calm, unshaken, because tonight was not about him. Tonight was the beginning of her rise. Bradley Pierce had imagined many versions of seeing Marissa again. In all of them, she was fragile, tearful, begging, apologizing for not being enough. That was the story he told himself, to survive the guilt he pretended not to have. But nothing prepared him for the woman standing under the chandelier that night. Marissa Lane, pregnant, glowing, stunning in emerald satin, looked like she belonged in the very world Bradley had tried to enter but could never truly reach. And Everett Caldwell's hand resting protectively at the small of her back made it clear she was not just attending the gala. She was being introduced. Bradley's breath stuttered. His chest tightened. "Marissa?" He tried again, louder this time. She finally turned. Her eyes met his with a calm so steady it rattled him. No anger. No desperation. Just a quiet, devastating certainty that she no longer lived in his shadow. He stepped forward. "We need to talk." "No," she said softly. "We don't." The simplicity cut deeper than any shout could. Bradley forced a smile, the kind he used on investors he needed to manipulate. "Come on, Marissa. Don't be dramatic. I've been trying to reach you. You blocked my number. That was intentional." Everett shifted, then subtle but unmistakable, placing himself between them without aggression, just presence. Power radiated from him effortlessly, like gravity rearranging itself. Bradley's voice cracked. Who is he to you?" Marissa didn't answer. Everett did. Someone who doesn't walk away from her while she's pregnant. The surrounding guests fell silent. Bradley flinched, color flooding his face. "This is ridiculous. Marissa, you can't just..." He gestured vaguely at Everett. "Replace me with some billionaire who..." Marissa's voice cut through, soft but sharp. "I didn't replace you, Bradley. You left me, remember?" Gasps rippled through nearby guests. Bradley's eyes darted around, suddenly aware of the audience he never wanted. His voice dropped to a hiss. "You're embarrassing yourself." "No," Marissa whispered. I'm finally protecting myself. His jaw clenched. Those are my children. Everett's eyes hardened. Legally, they're under my protection now, and we will see you in court with every record, every message, every witness you think didn't notice what you did. Bradley paled. He knew exactly what that meant. Before he could speak again, Serena Vale, his ex-influencer girlfriend, appeared at the ballroom doors, phone in hand, recording everything. "Smile, Bradley," she cooed. "Your downfall is trending." His world imploded. Marissa's, however, was only rising, and the next move she made would determine who truly held the power now. The ballroom was buzzing, electricity crackling through every whispered conversation. Guests pretended to focus on champagne flutes and auction paddles, but every pair of eyes subtly flicked toward the storm forming at the far end of the room. Everett had stepped forward in quiet authority. Marissa stood steady at his side, and Bradley was unraveling by the second. Then a shrill voice cut through the tension like shattered glass. "Well, isn't this precious? Serena Vale." She strutted toward them in a glittering silver gown, phone recording, smile sharp as a blade. "Bradley, darling," she purred loud enough for half the room to hear. "You didn't tell me your ex-wife leveled up." Bradley stiffened. "Serena, stop filming." But Serena thrived on chaos. She angled the camera to capture all three of them. No, this is too good. The internet will eat this alive." Marissa felt her pulse quicken, but Everett's hand lightly brushed her back, steadying her without touching her agency. She lifted her chin, unwilling to shrink for anyone ever again. Serena turned her attention to her. "So you're the mystery woman? The one everyone keeps whispering about on Madison Avenue?" She looked Marissa up and down, smirking. "You hide pregnancy well. But then again, money fixes anything, right?" A few gasps rippled through the crowd. Bradley hissed, "Serena, cut it out." "Why?" She shrugged. "You left a pregnant wife for me. Shouldn't the world get to see what karma looks like?" Marissa stayed silent, refusing to let a fame-starved influencer pull her into a mud fight. Her calmness only provoked Serena further. "Oh, don't play the victim," Serena snapped. "You act all innocent now, but Bradley told me everything. He said you were needy, clingy, a nobody with no ambition." Everett's jaw tensed, but Marissa finally spoke quiet, controlled, devastating. "If I'm a nobody, why does it bother you so much that I'm standing here?" Serena blinked, taken aback. Marissa continued. "A woman secure in her place wouldn't feel threatened." Several guests murmured in agreement. Serena flushed, lowering her phone. Bradley, sensing his image collapsing, pointed at Marissa. "You don't get to judge us. You left me." "I left?" Marissa repeated, voice soft but sharp. "Bradley, you served me divorce papers during a prenatal appointment." A stunned silence fell. Then Everett stepped forward, voice low enough to be lethal. "This conversation is over. And Miss Vale, if you continue recording, security will escort you out." Serena opened her mouth to argue, but two uniformed guards appeared behind her, responding to Everett's subtle nod. She paled. "Wait, are you serious? You can't be." "You're done," Everett said. Cameras clicked. Phones whispered. Bradley watched helplessly as Serena was escorted out of the gala she thought she controlled. His last ally gone. And Marissa, steady and radiant, stood taller than he'd ever seen. But the night wasn't over. A bigger reckoning was still on its way. 2 days after the explosive gala, Marissa sat inside the polished wood conference room of Caldwell and Hartman, the legal powerhouse Everett retained for matters he considered non-negotiable. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the table stacked with documents. Marissa rested a protective hand on her belly, feeling the steady movement of the twins. They were calm. She wasn't. Everett entered the room with a presence that shifted the air. He wasn't wearing a suit today, just a dark sweater and slacks, but somehow that made him more imposing, not less. His eyes softened when they met hers. "You ready?" he asked. "No," she admitted honestly, "but I'm here." He smiled. "That's enough." The lead attorney, a sharp woman named Dana Whitford, cleared her throat. "We've reviewed Bradley Pierce's custody petition. Frankly, it's paper thin. He's trying to reinsert himself for financial leverage." Marissa flinched. "Leverage? They're his children." Dana exchanged a knowing look with Everett. "He didn't file because he wants to raise them. He filed because the rumors about you and Everett have spread. He thinks the Caldwell name means money. Marissa's stomach twisted. Of course, Bradley didn't want the children, he wanted access. Everett leaned forward, voice calm but edged with steel. This is why we're formalizing everything. He slid a folder toward her. It's a comprehensive guardianship and protection agreement. It gives you full decision-making rights, and it places the twins under my legal protection until they're born and beyond. Marissa blinked. Everett, that's huge. I know, he said softly, and I'm not doing it lightly. Dana added, if Bradley pushes this in court, he'll be going against a legal fortress. We have documentation of abandonment, witness statements from the clinic, financial misconduct records, and now she placed another document on the table. Testimony from Serena Vale. Marissa's eyes widened. Serena? She agreed to help? Dana nodded. Apparently, Bradley betrayed her too. She provided voice messages, screenshots, even videos. Much more than we expected. A strange mix of relief and disbelief washed over Marissa. Why would she do that? Everett answered gently, because women who've been used recognize each other. Silence fell. Then Dana delivered the finishing blow. With all this evidence, a judge won't just deny Bradley custody, he'll likely assign him supervised visitation, if any. And we are seeking a restraining order. Marissa inhaled sharply. A restraining order? Everett's gaze locked with hers, steady, protective. Certain, he won't get near you again, Marissa. Or the twins. Her chest tightened, not with fear this time, but with safety. A safety she'd never known. Dana closed the folder. Once this is signed, Bradley Pierce becomes legally powerless. Powerless. The man who left her sobbing on a clinic bed. Powerless. Marissa exhaled slowly. For the first time, she felt the scales finally tipping in her favor, and this was only the beginning. The Caldwell Foundation Winter Gala was the kind of event whispered about all year, glittering gowns, million-dollar auction paddles, and a guest list curated like royalty. Tonight, it was held at the Metropolitan Hall, a glass-domed masterpiece glowing like a jewel beneath the Manhattan skyline. Marissa Lane stepped out of the car first. She wore a midnight black velvet gown that fell elegantly around her pregnant figure, the twins' gentle curve, accentuated like a symbol of resilience rather than vulnerability. Her hair swept in soft waves, her steps steady, her posture regal. Everett followed, offering his arm not as a savior, not as a protector, but as an equal beside her. The photographers didn't even try to hide their excitement. Everett, over here. Is this the woman you've been seen with? Ma'am, name please? Marissa didn't answer. She simply smiled, a soft, confident expression that made the cameras click faster. Inside, chandeliers dripped like liquid stars. The orchestra played a low, sweeping melody as guests turned, whispers spreading like wildfire. That's her. She's stunning. Is she expecting? Is that Everett Caldwell's family? Every gaze that once dismissed her now lingered in awe. For a moment, Marissa allowed herself to breathe. But then chaos. Bradley Pierce stormed into the ballroom, shoulders tense, hair disheveled, suit wrinkled as if he'd dressed in a panic. Several guests stepped back from the sheer force of his desperation. He spotted her instantly. Marissa. Everett subtly shifted his stance, protective but calm. Bradley charged toward them, ignoring the stares. You can't do this. You can't just erase me from my children's lives. Marissa held his gaze, unshaken. You erased yourself. No, he barked, voice cracking. You were supposed to stay the same. You weren't supposed to. His voice faltered as he looked at her dress, her glow, her strength. Become this. The room watched in suffocating silence. Everett spoke first. Bradley, this is neither the time nor the place. Bradley jabbed a trembling finger toward him. You stole my family. Marissa stepped forward, lifting her chin. Family? You walked away from that clinic without once asking if your baby's hearts were still beating. Everett didn't steal anything. He showed up. A ripple of applause, small but real, moved through the crowd. Bradley's face flushed red. You think you're better than me now because you're on his arm? Marissa's voice softened, lethal in its honesty. No, Bradley, I'm better because I finally chose myself. He staggered back as if struck. Security approached discreetly. Everett placed a hand on Marissa's back and whispered, "It's over." But it wasn't. Not yet. Because moments later, the event host took the stage and announced, "Please welcome Everett Caldwell and his family." The The spotlight swung toward them. Gasps filled the ballroom. Bradley's knees buckled, and the world finally saw who Marissa Lane had become. The spotlight washed over Marissa and Everett like a soft crown, illuminating them before the entire ballroom. Everett didn't hesitate. He offered his arm with a quiet confidence that rippled through the crowd. And Marissa, glowing in her midnight gown, placed her hand gently atop his. Not as someone being rescued, but as someone finally stepping into her rightful place. The host continued, "Tonight, we honor Everett Caldwell and his growing family for their contributions to maternal health initiatives across New York." Family. The word echoed. Cameras flashed. Applause rose. Murmurs swelled into fascination. Bradley stood frozen near the center of the room, eyes wide, face drained of color. He looked like a man watching the ground disappear beneath him. Everett guided Marissa toward the stage. When they reached the microphone, he spoke with that calm, resonant authority that made even billionaires go silent. "Thank you," he began. "Tonight isn't about me. It's about strength, about survival, about women who endure more than the world ever sees." His eyes found Marissa, softened, and about the 2 children who will soon join us. Gasps, whispers. Bradley choked on air. He's announcing my kids? My kids? No one acknowledged him. Everett continued, "I'm honored to protect them, honored to build a future with them, and honored to stand beside the woman who has shown bravery unlike anything I've witnessed." He stepped aside, inviting Marissa forward. Her breath trembled, but her voice didn't. "For a long time, I thought silence kept me safe," she said. "I thought shrinking made me easier to love." She paused, one hand resting on her belly. "But survival doesn't come from shrinking. It comes from standing." Dozens of women in the crowd nodded, some discreetly wiping tears. Marissa continued, "When I was left alone, pregnant, scared, and invisible, I believed I had no one. But someone saw me. Someone stepped in when I was collapsing. Someone taught me my life didn't end when he walked away." Everett's eyes glowed with pride. She finished softly but firmly, "I am not the woman he abandoned. I am the woman who rose." The ballroom erupted in applause. All except one. Bradley shoved through the crowd, shouting over the cheers. "You can't do this. You can't act like I don't exist. Those are my kids. I have rights." Security moved in. Everett stepped closer to Marissa, voice cool enough to freeze steel. "Your rights ended when you left her on that clinic bed." Bradley lunged, desperate, humiliated, unraveling. Security pinned him instantly. The cameras caught everything. And as Bradley was dragged out, screaming her name, Marissa didn't flinch. Because the world had finally heard the truth, and none of it belonged to him anymore. The weeks following the gala unfolded like the ending of a story Marissa once thought she'd never get to live. Bradley's public meltdown went viral, sparking headlines across every platform. The custody case? Dismissed within minutes. The judge, unimpressed by Bradley's theatrics and swayed by overwhelming evidence, granted Marissa full parental rights and approved a restraining order. Bradley left the courtroom pale, speechless, and stripped of every illusion of control he once had. As for his public image, it crumbled completely. Serena released the rest of her recordings, each one more incriminating than the last. Brands severed ties. His former company pulled every trace of him offline. And the world he had built on lies and borrowed prestige finally collapsed, leaving him exactly as he had left Marissa months ago. Alone, powerless, forgotten. But Marissa didn't watch his downfall with vengeance in her heart, only closure, because her life was no longer defined by what he took, but by what she had rebuilt. The twins arrived on a crisp spring morning, healthy and strong, their tiny cries filling the private birthing suite Everett had arranged. When the nurses placed them into her arms, Marissa wept not from fear this time, but from a joy that felt too big for her body to hold. Everett stood beside her, voice trembling as he whispered their names, the ones she had chosen. He didn't ask to hold them first. He asked permission. That alone told her everything. Weeks later, on a quiet terrace overlooking the East River, Everett knelt not with a grand spectacle, not with cameras or crowds, but with sincerity so deep it silenced the world around them. "Marissa," he said, voice steady but full of emotion, "you walked through fire alone. Let me walk with you through everything else. Will you marry me?" Her breath caught, not because she depended on him, but because she finally knew she didn't have to. She whispered, "Yes." The wedding was intimate, beautiful, warm. No gossip columns, no flashing cameras, just family, the one she chose and the one she created. As she held her sons in her arms and looked at the man who had loved her not for perfection, but for resilience, something inside her settled. A peace she once thought impossible. Later that night, standing on the balcony with the city shimmering below, Marissa closed her eyes and breathed in the life she had fought for. And in her own quiet narrator's voice, she reflected, "Being abandoned didn't break me, it freed me." Because sometimes life removes people from your path when their part in your story is over. And the ones meant to stay, they walk beside you, not ahead of you. All right, the story has finally come to a close. And if you are still here with me right now, listening, breathing quietly on the other side of the screen, then something in Marissa's journey must have touched your heart in a real way. Maybe it reminded you of a moment you had to rebuild yourself. Maybe it whispered a truth you were already carrying. You are stronger than the people who walked away from you. You know, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way," meaning what breaks you can also shape you. What feels like the end may actually be the doorway to the life you truly deserve. Marissa didn't rise because she never fell. She rose because she refused to stay where she was left. And you can do that too. Healing isn't loud. It isn't glamorous. It's choosing, every single day, to believe that your worth isn't defined by who failed to see it. So if this story reached you, even just a little, if it made you feel seen, or stronger, or less alone, then let's keep walking this path together. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel so these stories and these reminders of your own strength can keep finding their way to you. And remember, what left your life wasn't meant for your future. But you are still becoming.